Alright y'all, welcome back, and today we have a different type of video. This is the 1500 subscriber special.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Okay, really it's a reason just to put a bunch of my JoJo videos into a 1 hour long or about an hour long video. But, you know, we can also celebrate the growth of the community because over the past month, really over the past month and a half, we've gained over, I think, 600 subs, something about 600, 700 subs, and I can't thank y'all enough. Y'all been watching these videos, and thank y'all. You know, I take a lot of time to make them per day. But without further ado, please enjoy these videos. Okay, y'all, welcome back. And we're at the end of 2024. Me personally, I made the second half of 2024 my personal year in multiple ways. But going from 2024 to the big 2025 and still mischaracterizing Jotaro Kujo is actually insane. Now, if you know anything about me, I'm not the biggest Jotaro fan, but it's mainly Jotaro anime fan, part 3 anime fan. That's really the part where I'm not the biggest fan of Jotaro. But with me not being the biggest fan, I still understand his character. And I feel like when it comes to a lot of JoJo fans, they either one, don't want to understand his character, or two, just see a tough, big, swole, tough nigga and just like, yep, that's my new red pill merchant. When in all reality, Jotaro is basically the most heroic Joestar we have. Sorry, Jonathan. Well, through the actions we've seen and the fact that we've seen Jotaro live, well, a full life for Joestars. But the thing with Jotaro is that a lot of people just see him as this tough guy who doesn't care about nobody and who doesn't give a fuck about nobody, and he's just going to do his shit. He wants to be left alone and he doesn't want to be bothered. Partially all that is true, but what people don't understand is that this man in real life was a softie. Like, he was real life a softie. When he would tell his mom all those curse words, tell her to F off, call her beware, all that, bro, he was trying to get his mom away from him because he was scared of the evil spirit, which turned out to be Star Platinum, his stand. He was scared of the evil spirit, and he didn't want anyone else to have to deal with that. Any of the people he cared about to have to deal with that. That's a basic one. I feel like when I talk about his mom and Jotaro, a lot of people, there are people that understand it. There's a lot of people that understand it now, and then versus the people that don't. You know what I mean? And that's a lot more basic of a concept to break down, other than the complicated relationship between him and Jolene. Because those are usually the two big issues when it comes to the mischaracterization of Jotaro, which I don't get, because in part 6, you get Jotaro's character pretty fleshed out and you see it really well. But anyway, when it comes to Jotaro and Jolene, there's like a variety of jokes. There was people who said he cared more about his dolphins than him in the ocean. There were people that said he cared more about Koichi than Jolene. It was like, I saw a lot of that, and there was people that said he didn't care about Jolene. And breaking all that down, because I am going to, we'll start off with why was Jotaro not around for Jolene's childhood. Well, Jotaro, it was clear that Jotaro's first thought was, if I stay away from my family, and all of the stand users, they follow anyone with a stand. The stronger your stand is, the more you attract. If you're just a stand user, you'll attract other stand users. My best bet is just to leave my wife and my daughter at home while I go do what I have to do for work. Now, is it wrong of him to not call that much, or all the extra stuff he should have been doing? Yes, that was very wrong. But he thought that was the best way to protect his family and make sure nothing were to happen to him. That's why in Stone Ocean, the first time we see him, he shows up at the prison. And when he shows up at the prison, he's all business. He's literally just trying to get her out. He's not thinking about nothing else except getting her out. Because I have a feeling that he just knew that them being in the prison was bad news, because you're in an enclosed area with potentially a destructive stand that you know nothing about, and you don't know who has the stand power. You don't know if it's long range, you don't know if it's short range, you don't know if a guard is going to walk by you and just snipe you. You don't know. But that was just one part of part 6. That was the early part of part 6. Let's talk about the later part of part 6, where we really see it on Showcase how much he cares about Jolene. The first time we see him back, he dodges a bullet for Jolene. He stops time for her and dodges a bullet for her. Just because he knew if he didn't stop that time, she would have got shot. And then after that, he gets the most key question of all of Stone Ocean, which is being asked if someone can marry your daughter. The nigga's so wild. But nah, seriously, by the end of part 6, the Made in Heaven events start happening. And once they start happening, the last thing Poochie says to this man is, you were 2 steps behind because of your daughter. Meaning this nigga chose his daughter over the universe. Because he knew if he let his daughter die, he could not live in the universe. He just couldn't. And like, I don't plan on making this video even a long video because who Jotaro Kujo is very easy to explain. He has a caring, big heart, but he does not want to showcase it because of the danger that he's constantly in, and that he understood that he was constantly in once he first got the power. That's why even in a part like part 4, Jotaro makes a decent amount of saves. He saved Koichi, he saved basically the whole town. Him and Koichi, they both helped save the whole town. You know, he is a caring team player. He just doesn't want people to get hurt, people weaker than him to get hurt that he cares about. But he masked that with a tough guy act. But you can see through it given his actions. And I'm pretty sure that was the whole purpose Araki gave Jotaro, at least in the later parts. Even in the manga, you could see it because Araki, he actually had the facial expressions that the anime just didn't deliver on. You know what I mean? But that's all for me. That's all I got. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the channel. And I think over break, I decided that I'm going to try to be more active on my YouTube. You know what I mean? I have nothing but time. And I'm a senior, so I don't really have to go back for exams and stuff. I'm exempt from my exams. So I have like a month of damn near just pure break time for me to just do whatever. So with that being said, more videos are on the way. And in this video today, we are going to talk about why I believe Fugo was not wrong for just hitting the rest of the team with a fucking peace sign and dipping out. When we talk about Fugo, it's like a lot of people, they call him a coward, they call him all these different things, but you got to realize, right? We know in part 5, he was the smartest one there. I think his IQ was like 160, 170 something, right? We know, like, everyone else in that group of, it was what, 5, 6, everyone else, hella trauma, insane amount of trauma. Fugo, we literally saw him, he had to fight off a professor from his prep school because he was trying to do not good things to him. So imagine, put yourself in his shoes. Imagine, right? Y'all have just completed a mission. You believe y'all just completed a mission. Then your boss, and the mission you were supposed to complete comes back, and your boss just like, yeah, he was trying to end her. So we got to protect her. And now our new target is the boss. What do you mean our new target is the boss? The never before seen boss that we know nothing about. We don't know his name, and we know that he chopped someone up into several layers of their body. Like, immediately I'll be thinking, why would I go out there? On top of that, his stand, it's not, if he were to go, his stand wouldn't have been built for almost any stand battle they had, unless no one was around and he was just doing that shit by himself. Or Giorno and everyone else just duck out the way and get out of the radius. It's like his stand, it's so OP, it's so destructive that like everyone will be destroyed. It's like the poison gas, it doesn't just pick its own enemies, it picks everybody. And you only got 30 seconds after that shit comes out, so you better make it count, honestly. But Fugo, after that, after you're told all that information, right? Knowing how smart you are, knowing how young you are, 'cause I'm pretty sure Fugo's what? I'm pretty sure he's still a teenager. If not, he's early 20 at most. But being someone so young, and now your group is asking you to put your life on the line, to save this random girl who you will never interact with against your boss who gave you a job after your parents kicked you out. Yeah. Like, in some ways, I think it would have made sense if Hugo was a traitor. Honestly, it would have made sense if Araki went with his gut and made Hugo a traitor. Because, like, then everything I just said, he could use that as a motivation. Oh yeah, why would I betray the nigga who brought me in and gave me a home and shit? Like, don't get me wrong, Bruno did that, but at the end of the day, it's the boss's company, you know? Like, that's another thing. I don't get why fans get so mad when they see Hugo leave. But, like, in some ways I do, because you look at the other parts and the other Joe Bros, and none of them ever left they Joestar. Ever. You know, that's like Abdul saying, all right, y'all, I'm good. I had my interaction with Dio. I'm good. I don't want no parts. But it's also like with part 5, none of the other Joestars or Joe Bros would ever be in a situation as dangerous off rip as this. You know what I mean? Because, and when I say that, I say it because they are literal mafia members, Italian mob members. Don't get me wrong. The Stardust Crusader group, they had a dangerous mission off rip. They had to find Dio, track him down, and that's a lot. 50 days too, that's a lot. But the difference was that they had to cross the world to go get Dio, and they knew where Dio was at. They could track him down. Part 5, they had no idea where Diablo was at, and Diablo was either sending people out or going to do that shit himself. Towards the end, he was just doing that shit himself. So, like, when you look at it, you're just like, man, this man Stan, it might kill the rest of the group if he were to stay. I know if I stay, more than likely, I'm not surviving. Why would I stay? Just because we're family? Yeah, nah. And I make so many jokes on it because I just find it so funny. Because it's like, this man, he said, fuck y'all. Y'all got Diablo. I don't know his stand. I don't know what he can do. I want no parts. And he dipped. And I gotta respect that. But yeah, that's all I have for y'all today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Alright, y'all. Welcome back to the channel. This is probably going to be the 4th day straight I am posting. This is the most consistent I've ever been, so please give me a like, give me a follow if you enjoyed the video. That's enough intro. Today's video, it's one I know I'm going to thoroughly enjoy because I get to talk about why I personally love stands so much. And I've never made a full-length video on it. I made short-form content that was over a minute, but I've never made a full-length video on it. But with that being said, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I feel like, personally, for me, for all the anime that I personally have seen, stands are like a top 2 power system in terms of my favorite. And plus, they work beautifully. And when I say top 2, I think one of the only other power systems that's like really up there for me personally is Nin. I love Nin. I love how it's broken down. Even though once you, it's some things it's hard to get initially, but once you get it. But the reason I have stands so highly rated on where I rank power systems is simply because Araki, he did a great job of showing that stands are the reflections of these characters' souls. You know what I mean? And Araki used stands in JoJo to show how much, really to help personify the character's traits and to show how much like stands and the human or whoever it is who has a stand, because you know animals get a stand too, but whoever has a stand, how they act and what their powers would be. Like when you look at Star Platinum, for example, it makes sense that's Jotaro's stand. I couldn't imagine it being anyone else's stand throughout all of JoJo, if I'm being honest with you. That Star Platinum, you're always going to see Jotaro. Same, at least for me, with Josuke and Crazy Diamond. There's no one else that could really replicate the crazy diamond feeling I get from Josuke. Like when talking about stand users, I feel like Araki, he made it so that after part 3, because throughout the part 3 stands, they're a lot more straightforward, but after part 3, that's where you get the quote-unquote super intricate stands, but they aren't really that intricate, like Bites the Dust, for example. You can understand Bites the Dust pretty simply because it's shown to you, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I've heard a lot of people within the JoJo community say that they don't completely get Bites the Dust because it always loops. Or King Crimson. Now, with King Crimson, some people really do get it. Some people really don't get it. Like, and I've made short form videos on like just breaking down what King Crimson's stand ability is. But like, I feel like once Araki got like really accustomed to drawing stands with every character, he started to go more deeper into his bag to think of these powers, you know what I mean? Like, he's not just gonna give you a stand that just punches through shit, like after part 3, for real. Because even when you look at part 4, I don't think there's a stand that just punches through shit like Star Platinum. I really don't. I mean, you could say Zahando, but like, he's literally swiping existence out of like the world, you know what I mean? I can't equate that. But the thing with stands is like, right now I'm only talking about the stands that are actually attached to somebody's soul, you know what I mean? The stands that you'll see pop out, like Crazy Diamond, like Star Platinum, King Crimson. The stands are right there. I haven't even started talking about the automatic stands, the stands that have a set range, the stands that will just chase you down throughout the city because you're too close. That's another part that makes the stand power system so great. It's the fact that not every stand is the same. For 2, it doesn't feel like every stand or most stands even follow the same set of orders or rules. The only order they follow is that they can't be seen by people who don't have stands, you know what I mean? And plus there are just things like stand attacks, like for instance Kira, when he had that, it was, I forget what sheer heart attack. When he had sheer heart attack. And he just had that shit rolling up to people long range too. He's nowhere near in the vicinity. But it works because that's his soul. That's his whole character. He's a character that sneaks around to get by. And he's a character that wants to live a normal life, but he's being hunted down because of the heinous stuff he does. That he knows that he can't be out in public where he put his attack at, because then I'll just give him away, which low-key it ended up giving him away because he went to his attack either way. Now I will say there are some drawbacks that come with stands, like for example, you get Cheap Trick, you gotta die, or Notorious Big, you're dead. You don't gotta die, you're just dead. And plus there's always the possibility that you could get a stand that's not good. Like a stand that really fucking sucks. And that's just it. You just get a stand that sucks. And none of the normal people will know. You probably won't attract no stand users. It's gonna suck. But other than that, you get a regular stand, you'll most likely end up in a bizarre adventure of your own. You know what I mean? That's another thing I like about stands. They don't discriminate. They're not like everyone. It's like everyone has one, but not everyone can access their stand. That's why we see someone like Holly. She got sick from her stand being activated without her being the one to activate it. You know what I mean? But someone like Jotaro, he was just fine with that because his will was just fine with that. I don't know. That's really all I have for y'all. If y'all like the video, please like, comment, subscribe. We're on the way to 2K, so if you can, like it up, please. Okay, y'all, welcome back. And if I'm being honest, I don't feel like anyone deserves the infinite death loop. I want to get that like off my chest, off rip. You know, you see the title of this video, you know what we're talking about. And I'm gonna break down why I feel like no one deserves that. The reason I feel like no one deserves that is because you're going to die, more times than you've ever caused suffering. You cause suffering to thousands, millions maybe. If we're talking about Diablo, millions maybe. But the amount of times he'll die and probably had died, like by the end of Stone Ocean, that's what, 10 years? It was an insane amount. And to make matters worse, the original universe is still continued. We just don't see it anymore. So he just keeps dying as the years go on. Like, it's not, nothing's literally, Made in Heaven didn't change nothing for Diablo. He just keeps dying. Like, for me personally, I feel like if someone was to get that punishment, they would have to be on a higher level than Diablo, because by all means, Diablo caused a lot of suffering, and he indirectly caused a lot of deaths. But you gotta realize, Diablo was never selling the shit himself. He's distributing it throughout his gang, and they are pushing it for him. He is the boss. Our underlings are pushing the shit. Now, he didn't have a problem selling the kids because he saw all business as business. That's horrible. Terrible. But when in universe canon, you have people who are dead ass just walking around, running around, just killing civilians. Look at Dio, for example. Dio would probably be more deserving of the infinite death loop than Diablo. I'm not gonna lie. Just think about it. Diablo has at the time in the verse, before going to experience Requiem, it was a top 1 stand. He could have, if he wanted to, he could have been expanded out past the country of Italy, but he didn't, because he was fine with being the boss that no one saw in the backgrounds, making a ass load of money selling. And so for a punishment like this, a punishment to the highest degree, the highest scale, it would be more deserved for someone who was actually trying to hurt millions plus billions of people and trying to control everything. Like one of the villains who were looking for world domination, they should have probably got the infinite death loop beside Diablo. But also, let me say this. The symbolism that we do see between Giorno and Diablo, God versus devil, all that. It was very well thought out and well written, and I don't know if it hits the same without the infinite death loop to cap off, to basically conclude their whole fight, the whole struggle they had. Because I guess in a way you can say the infinite death loop is Giorno sending Diablo to his personal hell and making him relive all the struggles he probably caused other people who bought his shit. You know what I mean? Like, just a little theory, but like when I'm talking about like deserving it, like it makes sense in canon why Giorno of all people decides to give Diablo the death loop. This is Dio's son, partially Dio's son we're talking about. And this is a man with a strong conviction of justice. He knew what he wanted, and he knew what he wanted to do to Diablo in specific, just because of how he was leaving kids in his hometown. It hits different when it's your hometown, it's your place that you've lived your entire life. But someone had actually asked me this question on TikTok. That's a part of the reason why I'm making this video. That's part of the reason why this next half of the video is being made. But what would be a fair punishment for Diablo based off the crimes that he has done? But a fair punishment for Diablo would be a Dio death. Honestly, it would be a death like Dio's. Because you gotta think about it. With Dio, when he died, he was still trying to believe that he was the strongest in the world and that Jotaro couldn't touch him. There was no way possible. But Jotaro, he had already proven to himself that, for one, he has time stop. For two, he's damn near stronger. I feel like somewhat of that same scenario happened with Giorno and Diablo, because Giorno got the Requiem arrow. But I feel like they were trying to make Giorno's ability so overpowered that in some ways it feels like it was a little bit overdone, but not too much because it's still cool as fuck. But yeah, I feel like he should have went out the same way he was taking people out, with a hole in the chest. Like, that would have sufficed as a proper punishment for Diablo, a drug dealing kingpin who wanted to be unknown, to die in the street with a hole in your chest that no one, mind you, no one knows you, but they just see your body and they walk over it. But yeah, y'all, this is all I have for today. If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We are on the road to 2K. All right, y'all, today is New Year's Eve, and I decided why not end off 2024 with a nice and easy video idea. So today I have for you how it felt watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventures for the first time. For me to effectively tell you how it felt for me personally going into JoJo, I have to go back a few years. I think probably started 2021-ish. And back then I remember when I had first seen JoJo, I was definitely a JoJo hater. Like before I even watched it, when I just used to see the cover and stuff, I would just think to myself, well, this doesn't seem like it would be a show that I would like. So I would just keep scrolling by it. That wasn't until one of my friends, he had told me he had seen the first three parts of JoJo. And he said, I think you would like it. It feels like it's kind of an anime you would like. So I had decided one day to finally watch it. And when I did, I think my mind was blown. I think even watching part 1 for the first time had my mind blown. Mostly, like, the first episode, I was locked in. Watching Dio just come up and be a ruthless ass nigga, I was locked in. The ending of part 1, I was also locked in. I binge watched part 1 in one day. That's one thing I do remember. Binge watching part 1 in a day. And getting halfway through part 2 in that same day. Speaking of part 1, I do feel like the ending definitely got me hooked into JoJo. Because the thing with the part 1 ending, it's always been one of my favorite JoJo endings. Even as the series progresses, still one of my favorites. Even till this day, it's like a top 3, top 4 favorite ending for me all time. But while watching it for the first time, it felt so good. It was also the bad side to watching it for the first time, which was not knowing which of your favorite characters were going to die. Because I will say this, it hurt like hell watching Caesar get crushed in part 2. Like, it hurt. I was like, ain't no fucking way. But I knew it would happen. Not because I got spoiled or anything like that. Because Caesar ran in there with no backup. It wasn't even just Caesar too. He was just one of the first ones that really, really hurt me deeply. Then you get to part 3, and then you get Avdol, you get Kakyoin, you get Iggy. All 3 of them gone. And then Araki wants to give you a fake out death with Joseph. I really thought by the end of part 3 it was just going to be Jotaro and Polnareff. Because with Joseph, they literally had him talk as a golden cloud and everything. It's crazy. But along with not knowing which of your favorite characters are going to die, it was also the really weird episodes of JoJo. Because I'll be honest, even though I love JoJo with a passion, that strength episode, that's an episode I don't think I can ever rewatch. Like, anytime I rewatch JoJo's, I have to skip that episode. Or if I am rewatching it and it comes on, more than likely, if it's still on, I'm not paying attention. Because I can't give that episode focus one more time. As a matter of fact, part 3 just had a lot of weird episodes. I think it had 3. And the funniest thing with the weird episodes is that everyone just tells me, oh, well, it's JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Which, it's a difference between an episode just being bizarre, because that's cool. You know, that's cool. An episode being borderline, should I be watching this? Like, if it gets to the point where you're asking yourself if you should be watching this, that's a problem. But even while there was cons to watching it for the first time, and seeing all the cool stuff that happens, seeing Joseph end up being all three Pillarmen members in completely different ways, seeing the Jotaro versus Dio fight, it was so lovely to see for the first time. It was so beautiful. From the animation to the dialogue, it was beautiful. Very few things I don't like about that fight. Or when you experience Golden experience Requiem for the first time. It was so insane to see. It was insane to see this nigga Giorno get his head busted open, and you look up and you just see him floating in the sky. What's up? Looking at Diablo like, what's up? But it doesn't have to be moments in JoJo. It was actually, for me personally, it was whole parts. When I first watched part 4, oh my god, I think part 4 definitely changed some part of me. Because watching it for the first time and seeing Josuke for the first time, I think from like episode 3, I had already just, unilaterally decided Josuke was my favorite Joestar. But watching it for the first time, especially a show like JoJo, and a show that really sells the suspense and the tension well, it was fantastic to see, because you never knew what was going to happen. The only thing you could really guess was that your Joestar was going to make it out alive, which more times than not, they probably would-ish. And I think it's the fact that JoJo is split up into so many parts that honestly helps it, because it's like you get to choose, for one, which one is your favorite after you watch it. Because for a lot of people who watch JoJo and get really far into it, once they see their favorite part, that becomes the 10 out of 10 part for them, usually. But while giving you the option to choose, whatever part you really, really like, more times than not, there's like multiple parts that are very similar towards it. You know what I mean? Like how there's a lot of subtle similarities between part 4 and part 5. Like, for example, how both the MCs both have healing stands. Something like that. But yeah, that's all I got for y'all today. Make sure you have a good rest of your day. It's the last day of the year. And make sure you leave a like, hit subscribe. Happy New Year's to everybody, Finally in 2025, it's going to be a big year for all of you. I can feel it. But I want y'all to imagine this. Imagine you are in the JoJo universe and you meet a Joestar, right? And they ask you if you want to take a bizarre adventure with them, and if you want to help them beat this random antagonist, overpowered too. Do you say yes? I know me personally, I'm saying no. No, I don't. And to me, the reason I'm saying no is pretty simple. I'm not trying to turn into a memory. Now, one thing about JoJo and about side characters in specific in JoJo, there's always going to be at least one every part that goes down. That's a given. It's to be expected. But if you land up in a bad time frame, might be 4 or 5 side characters that just go down within the part. And most of you may know the part I'm really referring to, part 5. When I think about part 5 and being a side character in part 5, I would just immediately get the gun. There's no reason for me to be there. I'm not helping. It doesn't matter what my stand is. No, me and Fugo would have said no, and they would have been out of luck. Because we're just talking about part 5. Diablo was a beast. He was not one of those villains that are waiting for you to come to them, waiting for you to find out everything about him. No, he's walking you down, and he's calmly doing it too, and no one's gonna know. But when we're talking about in general, the reason I mainly say being a side character would suck is because the amount of lethal damage you see side characters take, even if they don't die, the amount of lethal damage they take is actually absurd. Look at someone like Okuyasu. That man literally was this close to dying. This close. Or look at Polnareff. Not only throughout part 3, but also throughout part 5. In both parts, Polnareff was getting his ass kicked by Dio and Diablo, respectively, but he was still there. It's also the fact that if you are a side character that does make it out unscathed, there's a chance you might be brought back for the next part. Look at Speedwagon, for example. Speedwagon, part 1, he was fine. He made it out unscathed, untouched. Part 2, it was definitely a lot more of a struggle for Speedwagon in particular. Because I don't know if y'all remember, but he got killed. And then the Germans brought him back to life. Then he had to witness a bunch of people get killed around him. But he also helped fight against the Pillarmen, like later in the part. Like, Speedwagon's definitely a GOAT. I don't talk about Speedwagon enough. Definitely a GOAT. But I will say this, being a side character, it increases your chances of having a cold ass stand. Because Araki, he'll never put a side character in who really got a trash ass stand. Like for stands since part 3, thinking about all the side characters, I don't think there's been a singular side character that stand is really something that I would say is just complete garbage. But just because your stand is cool doesn't mean it's anywhere near the strongest, fastest, or the one with the most hacks. So every time you run into a main antagonist as a side character, 9 times out of 10, you're done. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Polnareff is like the only one to technically have encounters with Dio and Diablo and live. Cause you remember Dio kept putting him back at the bottom of the stairs, and then Diablo caught him in Egypt. Then he caught him again in 2001 when the series was actually going on. But I haven't even talked about one of the most important parts to being a side character in JoJo. And that is the tragic ass, sad ass backstory you're mandatory to get. Like, it doesn't matter the part, more than likely you could find at least one side character who has just a horrid backstory, super tragic, super dark, and you're just like, oh my god, why did you have to go through that? Like, just thinking off the top of my dome, there's part 5, part 6, part 7, mostly, part 3, part 2, and all those different parts. Like, I would say the entire cast of part 6 has a sad ass backstory. Probably the entire cast of part 5 also has a sad ass backstory. Majority of the cast in part 3, which would be like, we don't know Abdal's backstory, but Polnareff and Kakyoin, sad. And then part 2, again, Lisa and Caesar. Both them niggas was struggling and had a sad ass backstory. Lisa literally had to live her life in hiding. I would rather just not go at all. But that's all I got for y'all today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, we're on the road to 2. Okay, y'all. Welcome back to the channel. And today, I feel like I have a good idea for y'all. We are going to be ranking the JoJo parts. Now, I don't think I've done a JoJo ranking on this channel. I know I've done it on my TikTok maybe 2 or 3 times, but I think a long form version of it will do the ranking actually justice. But to start off, part 1. Now, me personally, I've rewatched part 1 a few times just because it really was better than people give it credit for. A lot of people think part 1 was mid. A lot of people think it was bad. A lot of people think it was skippable. I don't think part 1's skippable, personally. If you skip part 1, you can never go back to it, honestly. And like, you're missing key information in part 1 and part 2 because people skip part 2 too. But it tells a story of 2 1800s Englishmen going back and forth. Someone who uses the power of the sun versus a literal vampire. It was a very interesting dynamic to see. That's why, me personally, I give it a 7 out of 10. Now, my original rating of it when I first watched it was about a 6 out of 10. I still enjoyed it somewhat. Like, it had a little bit above average enjoyment, but like I felt like it could have been better. Now for part 2. Now, before I get into like the rest of the rankings, I also want to say this. All of these rankings are my personal enjoyment of these animes. Just me personally. But for part 2, I felt like part 2, it over exceeded my expectations by a lot. Coming into part 2, I didn't know how they were going to incorporate everything that went on in part 1 into part 2, but it worked perfectly because then we get the introductions to the stone mass, the pillarmen, and throughout part 2, watching the pillarmen just go crazy, it was insane, honestly. And really, it was just how crazy the abilities were and how much they had advanced in the 50 years time skip we saw from part 1 to part 2. Even how we saw Harmon advance in the techniques we see. I think with that being said, I would give part 2 probably a 9 out of 10. I really did like it through and through throughout the whole, I think, 12 episodes. Up next, part 3, Stardust Crusaders. Now, I was very mad seeing Dio come back. But then I started thinking to myself, I was like, hey, at least we have stands. And we get the introduction of stands. Even though at the time the stands were nowhere near as crazy as they get later in the parts, it was very nice seeing them. It was nice seeing the switch up from Harmon to stands. One of my favorite ones when it first got introduced was Magician's Red, and seeing, really it was because the first like encounter Avdol had with Jotaro and they had the little fight. From then on, I was hooked. But I will say one of the only drawbacks with part 3 is I feel like at the time David Productions, they didn't have the pacings we see in the later parts. You know what I mean? So even though they were pacing and adaptating part 3 at a pretty fast rate, almost 3 chapters an episode, part 3 ended up being about 48 episodes, which compared to the rest of the parts, which I think most of them said like 38, 39, something like that. That's an extra 9 episodes. So to me, it felt like it was dragging just a little bit going through it, but it also felt like it was very interesting seeing the different stands and the different side characters they encountered. But after a while, you could see the formula, which was like, meet someone, fight them. Meet someone, fight them. Get chased down, like, it was just that. And I feel like the anime version kind of missed on Jotaro a little bit, but I made a whole another video on that. You can go watch it. Probably put it on screen right here. But yeah, part 3, I give part 3 an 8.5 out of 10. It was still a very good part. Just little stuff with the anime. Okay. This part right here, it needs no introduction. Diamond is unbreakable. Part 4. I could say so much. I love almost everything, pretty much everything about part 4, honestly. From the character designs, to the music used, to the backgrounds. The only thing I don't really like is how long it took for us to see Kira, but like, that was whatever. Part 4 contained really probably my favorite side cast, my favorite JoJo, and one of my favorite villains in JoJo being Kira. So all in all, I give it about a 10 out of 10. Favorite part in JoJo, or at least it's tied for being my favorite. Y'all will see what it's tied with soon. Okay, up next, part 5. Now, my opinion of part 5 has fluctuated. When I first saw it, I liked it a lot, but I didn't have it that high up. Then I gave it a rewatch and I was like, oh my god, this is beautiful. But then I gave it another rewatch and I still felt it was beautiful, but then it just kind of, my rating of it kind of mellowed out. But part 5 has a great side cast. One of my favorite tweakers of all time, Diablo. Contrary to how a lot of JoJo fans feel, I really do like Giorno. Even though I do get the feeling that sometimes he did feel a little boring, I did still like his character and what he represented and what he stood for. And the ending was truly fitting for someone who was the child of Dio Brando and Jonathan Joestar. So with that, I give part 5 a 9 out of 10. Now listen, when it comes to this JoJo ranking, I have a 1A and a 1B. Y'all have seen 1A. This part though, part 6, it's not 1B. It's my second favorite part. I love part 6 with all my heart. One of the only things I didn't like about part 6 is sometimes the chemistry was off with all the characters, and you really don't see all the characters together almost at all throughout part 6. But it contains my favorite ending of all time, one of my favorite villains of all time in JoJo, and one of my favorite JoJos. I feel like it was done exceptionally. I give part 6 a 9.5 out of 10. Now for part 7. Steel Ball Run. I love Steel Ball Run. I love Steel Ball Run. I don't talk about it much because TikTok is mostly short form content and I'm not trying to spoil nobody. But I can talk about it here. If you want to scroll or if you want to skip in the video, you can skip in the video. But Johnny's journey of recovery and becoming a brand new person throughout the series, not only physically but mentally, it was so beautiful to see. And him and Jaro had the best friendship in the entire series, like hands down. The only one close is Josuke and Okuyasu, but him and Jaro, it's like a friendship, mentorship, fantastic. And Araki really honed in this time, making Funny Valentine really diabolical. He made the villain like so irredeemably diabolical in the chapters. Because this part 7 is around the time he switched from shonen to seinen, and he used that to his full extent. But part 7, I give part 7 a 10 out of 10. It is my 1B. Love part 7. Now for part 8 and part 9, I haven't completely finished part 8, so I won't go too in depth, and I'll probably just give my rating. And so since I haven't finished part 8, I've only read a chapter of part 9, which was the first. But I really do love part 8 so far. Josuke is very quickly becoming one of my favorite JoJo's. I feel like the supporting cast and really just the Higashikata family is so key in the part. It really hooks you in. I'm like close to 80 chapters in. Still haven't met Toru and Wonder of You and his stand, but I know it's going to be very interesting when we get there. But so far I give part 8 8.5 out of 10. But that's all for the video. If you enjoyed, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, we're on the road to 2K, so please. Alright, y'all, welcome back. And today, I want to talk about the most painful moments in JoJo to me. Because there was a lot of moments personally that caused me pain, and I think I can go through it and make it an interesting topic. But up first, we're going to start in part 1. And when we start in part 1, we're going to start with someone's death that no one really talks about. George Joestar II. That man right there, like his death, really, that's what really got me. Because at the end of the day, he was not the best father. He did a lot of things that just weren't good for his actual son. So what he did at the end, saving his son in exchange for him, peak father mentality. But as far as the pain I felt in that moment, I think it was the first time I actually felt pain from JoJo's. You know, it was one of the first deaths we see. The pain was somewhat high, but not as high as any of the next two, which are Jonathan and Will. Now, I've talked about Will Zeppeli's death before on this channel, but I've never talked about how it made me feel. I feel like watching that and just seeing this man half body crawl to Jonathan and give him the power, I was like, I was slack-jawed. But with Will Zeppeli, the pain subsided quickly because soon as he died, Jonathan got up and got to work, started working that big-ass beast. It was crazy. And I thought all was well with part 1 until we get to the end of part 1 and we see Jonathan's death. Now, this one was definitely the first experience I was almost crying. Jonathan was my nigga. Seeing him go out like that really killed me. Really killed me. This man has been tormenting your life for 12 plus years and you still have forgiveness in your heart to forgive him before you pass away. That's a real one. But as for part 2, it's a lot less moments I would say that really hurt me. The only moment I'm really talking about is Caesar's death. Now, Caesar's death, it impacted me mostly because the way the anime played it, they played it like there was a chance Caesar could win, even though he did the dumbest decision ever and went into a villain's hideout by himself while his friends are on the outside. Like, I don't care that y'all was just arguing. I would have dragged Joseph in with me and we would have got to a jump special on Wamu. Wamu would have caught a wombo combo. Fuck out of here. But nah, that shit definitely put me in my feels, especially seeing how his grandfather passed, saving the Joestar, and now how he's passing, saving the Joestar and giving his energy to a Joestar, someone who he hated at the start. It's crazy. All right, on to Tragedy Lane, or as I like to call it, part 3. Now, part 3, the tragedy that strikes is very interesting because it catches you off guard. I will definitely say that. Every death honestly caught me off guard, basically. Literally, from Avdol to Kakyoin to Iggy, all 3. And I'm just looking like, how did y'all just die? Y'all were just fine a moment ago. Like in Kakyoin, for example, I'm on the fence on how the anime adapted it because the OVA adaptation, you don't find out what the hell happens to Kakyoin, like, at all, because you don't hear no sound when the world comes out. As a matter of fact, when it first comes out, you don't even see it. But the pain level on all 3 was considerably high, Avdol being the highest only because they had just got to the mansion, had plans, they did the whole little wrap up, everything. Then this nigga dies. In a video like this, I don't really need to talk about part 4, so we're gonna skip over for now. Still love part 4, still probably my favorite part of all time. But up next, we have part 5. Now, part 5, man. I think Bruno's death is probably the one throughout the first 5 parts that definitely hit me the hardest. It definitely, like, it was a gut puncher. It was pain. It was painful because he came back. And we get this long, drawn-out explanation on why he's back and how back he is. The only reason he didn't even decompose sooner is because his soul, as he died, it did not immediately leave his body. But seeing the ending, the golden clouds, this man floating up into the sky while everyone watches him just continuously float, it felt like the part 3 pain again. You know, when you're watching the floating clouds and they just do, like, I know you're dead, but you don't have to make an emotional outrance. It's cool. But nah, part 5 was definitely tragic. It definitely was pain. It was some definite pain. All right, part 6. And I think I'm gonna stop at part 6 today. Let me know if y'all do want part 7 and probably part 8 by that point, and part 9 up to this point. But part 6. The most painful part in all of JoJo's, without a doubt. Now, I don't remember if I said part 5 was close to being the most painful, but it's not. It's not. It's nowhere near. No. Because the thing with part 6 is you think the group is about to win so many times. And Poochie gets out of it in such a bitch-ass way. You know, he'll get out of it by the skin of his teeth, by a distraction, by throwing something, by just getting knocked into the right position so he could get his new power. It was crazy. Not to mention you have to watch Jotaro, Jolene, Foo Fighters, Hermes. You have to watch Weather Report. You have to watch that whole group perish The only one who made it out by the skin of his teeth because he was riding a dolphin was Emporio. Like in reality, it was almost enough tragedy to classify as a horror movie, where the villain just completely dominates the entire time. Cause that's low-key how it felt for most of it, except the literal glimpses when they got the upper hand and Poochie just got on the move, started running. But yeah, that's all I got for y'all today. If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We're on the road to 2K. Okay, y'all. Welcome back. And some of you, I know y'all saw the title and you're wondering, why do you call her the ultimate fade master? And that's because Jolene Cujo was not ducking a singular fade throughout all of part 6. From start to finish, it was go time. Well, she was doing some, crazy things at the start. But, after that, once we meet Jotaro, it's go time. Now, one thing y'all gotta remember. This is Jotaro Kujo's daughter. Of course, she's finna be nails tough because Jotaro himself was nails tough. But the difference with Jolene is now she has a semi-long range stand. Something that Star Platinum wasn't. Well, kind of was, because he had some weird abilities that gave him some type of long range shit. But she has string. And don't let you be on the wrong receiving end of that string. Like, for example, the debt collector. She got the ball, she thinks shit's sweet. It's not sweet. Saw the string, next thing you know, 100 fists flying at her face all at once. She was cutting through the side villains like fucking butter. No cap. And really, I think what made me start thinking of her as the ultimate fade runner was when she fought that, I think it was Survivor stand, where it just made everyone feral and angry to fight. And she started emoting on the nigga right before she beat the fuck out of him. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure after that, immediately after that, they ran to that dragon, stupid ass dragon stand. And then after that, we get Green Baby. But y'all gotta remember, even with Green Baby, when it was just her and Asui, them niggas, they couldn't get too close because they would shrink. But they were still tracking the Green Baby down. I was reading back up on Stone Ocean because it's been a little second since I watched/read it. And I remembered the jailhouse lock stand. And she gave that shit hands too. Now, don't get me wrong. The stand was low-key hella resourceful and powerful because imagine you have an area. Like, let's say someone comes into your house and you can decide, well, now you're only going to remember 3 things. Every time you remember something new, you forget the first thing. That's OP. It's very easy to win having that stand. Unless you're going up against Jolene Cujo. Jolene gave her hands and feet. I do remember that. Hands and feet, because I remember us getting the chapters where she's just randomly back in the cell and we don't know what happened to her. And then we find out it was that stand. But when I say ultimate fade runner, I'm talking about most of the time she don't need a strategy. She don't even need to say anything out loud. She'll just think of something on the fly. She done caught your ass, like against C-Moon, for example. C-Moon, they were going back and forth. She was boxing. Straight hands with C-Moon. This nigga hit her in the stomach. Oh, you thought. Turned herself into a Morbius strip. What are we talking about? Then she kept fighting him. All the way up until he kicked her off and grabbed the gun. Because he knew hand to hand he was cooked. And earlier we did talk about the brawl that happened once Jolene got to max security prison. But like, I didn't talk about the security guard stand. Because we do find out he has a stand too. And it's to throw meteors at her. So while he's already off the influence of a stand that makes you hyper aggressive, makes you want to fight, he has his own stand that can just throw meteors at her. That's insane. And guess what? Hands and feet. Done. Like, I just wanted to mention that just so y'all could really get a grasp on how much crazy shit she was going through within a prison. This is all closed quarters. All phase are being ran probably a day within each other. Not even. Probably like 2 hours. Like, but when we get to later points in part 6, you see her run the fade with most of Dio's other children. And I already talked about the C Moon fight. Her and C Moon was going hand to hand. That was, and mind you, this was Poochie's best chance going hand to hand by this point. Because with White Snake, he could not do much. But Poochie gets knocked out by Jotaro. And of course, Poochie gets knocked right into the right position to get made in heaven. But that doesn't stop Jolene's mentality. No. That just makes her resolve stronger. Because after her father and her best friend and potentially her lover had passed, it was just her, Emporio, and Poochie. And Poochie, he was on the move. He was coming towards her. He was coming towards them. And she put Emporio on a dolphin and gave him Weather Report's disc and told him to go to the New World. She stood her ground. And she dead ass boxed with him. It wasn't for long, but she still boxed with him. Ultimate Fade Runner. It doesn't matter she lost. It doesn't even matter how bad she lost. She still, without a second thought, saved somebody who ended up saving the entire world, bringing her back, even though it's not technically her. It's a different version of her, but it's the same soul. And at the end of the day, her last thing we see her do on screen, Jolene Cujo, was run a fucking fade. But that's all I got for y'all. If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We're on the road to 2K, so of course, like it up, sub it up, comment up, whatever. And until next time, okay, y'all. Welcome back. And today, I feel like we should talk about the most vile violations throughout JoJo. And when I say violations, I'm not talking about anything like, I'm talking about someone getting get back. I'm talking about random acts of violence. I'm talking about Giorno beating the shit out of Chocolata. So to know what's so wrong with this nigga, I have to tell you a little bit of his backstory. As a young boy at 14, he wanted to become a surgeon, and he later did. But while he was young and he was learning, he was taking care of elderly patients. And a lot of people said he was doing fantastic, when in reality, he was feeding them unhygienic food and illegal substances and whispering in their ear, telling them no one's going to come visit them, no one loves them, driving them to commit suicide. And after they commit, he has tapes of this. Diablo actually discovered he had 40 tapes of it. Sorry, 25. But once he became a surgeon, it didn't stop there. No, it got worse. He continued his crimes, but by this time, he was up in the ante. See, you will be in surgery and you will randomly wake up while he's operating on you and he's doing the wrong operation. You could go in there for LASIK eye surgery and get a heart transplant. It's very scary. But really the way he got caught and the way Diablo really recruited him was when he got caught for killing one of his parents, and he was doing things with their body basically after. It was very, very messed up. But that's why he's held with JoJo fans as the most evil character. And from that, Giorno gave him the meanest beatdown he gave of every other side villain throughout part 5. A 7-page muta. That panel, reading it for the first time, you're like, oh my god, he keeps going. It's just panels and panels and panels full of it. I think the anime version is close to like a minute or two long. It's long as shit, and you just keep seeing Golden Experience punch the shit out of this nigga, deservedly. And mind you, before he even beat him down, he had shot one of his bullets into his head and turned it into a stag beetle so it could eat through his brain, just so he would be morbidly wounded and he wouldn't be able to react the same anymore. Up next, we have Kira versus Jotaro. Part 4, Sheer Heart Attack Part 2. It takes place in this episode. I'm just going to start off from this episode. Now, at the start of the episode, you see Kira versus Koichi, and Kira made quick work of Koichi, low-key almost packing him up to the point where he was like, yo, I got a few minutes to kill, literally. And he started just messing with him. Right before Koichi got his wallet and started naming out all his personal information. If you know Kira, you know he hates that shit. So Kira, getting angry, just punched right through him and was about to leave up until someone showed up. The man he sees is Jotaro Kujo. Now mind you, this is after him and Koichi were literally attacked by Kira through sheer heart attack at a clothing store. And from that fight, Jotaro was already almost fatally wounded. So when he showed up, he was very wounded. Back to the violation. Now Jotaro showed up, but at this time, Kira was still mostly talking that shit. Mostly because he was almost completely healthy, as Echoes didn't do much to kill a queen. Then he started saying how Star Platinum's weak and shit, and Star Platinum did not like that. Jotaro throws a punch, knocks Kira down, grabs his wrist, says that's an ugly watch, and punches this nigga up until he's black and blue. The beatdown was bloody. Jotaro beat Kira literally to a sense of unconsciousness, to the point where by the time he had woken up, Josuke, Okuyasu, Koichi, and Jotaro were all up. And Koichi and Jotaro had been healed. Now, on to the next one. This one, it was definitely a complete random act of violence. Not completely random because they did know each other. It is Bruno. I can't even say there's a versus. Bruno gets killed by Diablo. Now, I've covered different parts of this interaction in depth on this channel, but I'm really just going to cover the point where Trish gets taken and Bruno goes into Diablo's castle, because that's where shit really goes downhill. Because once Bruno goes in, Diablo starts asking him, what do you want? Why are you doing this? You've known her for like a day. This don't even involve you. Just because I took her hand, don't even worry about that. But Bruno just said, you could never know how I feel, and proceeded to try to sneak around Diablo's castle like he didn't know the ins and out of his own castle, and like his own power wouldn't let him see him coming. He didn't know that, but like still, trying to sneak your boss, there's a reason he's your fucking boss. Now, let me not go too crazy on Bruno, he's still a real one. But Bruno sneaks up on the boss from behind the column, and the boss tells him to leave or die. Now, this is where shit gets wicked, because at this point, when he says leave or die, he really 100% means that shit. And he asks him, why would you betray the gang after a completed mission? You're literally good. But Bruno says Trish never had a father, so he couldn't know how Bruno feels or she feels. Because as y'all know, Bruno, he lost his father when he was young and he got his get back. But Bruno sends his location to Giorno, then he attacks the boss again, but he vanishes. And once he vanishes, it was up. He appears behind Bruno with his stand intact and one swift chop right to the shoulder blade, cutting almost through him. But he was not done there. No. This wouldn't have made the list if it was just one chop. He then decides for good measure to punch through Bruno Bucciarati like he was a piece of paper. Now, before that last blow, Bruno had zipped up his body to trap King Crimson's hand, and it did work. He trapped one of his hands, but that didn't matter because he had another one. And through sheer will, Bruno lasted as long as he did to grab Trish and get to another part of the column. But once he had got to the upper level of the castle, he was really just done. He laid Trish down and he laid himself down. And that was it. While he was waiting on Giorno, he had died, but his soul didn't leave yet. That's why we see him for almost the rest of the part. But if you did enjoy the video, let me know, because I will do a part 2. I do have a few more I'm thinking of, but that would make this video entirely too long. But make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe. We're on the road to 2K, so please. Okay, y'all. Welcome back. And today, I'm going to do that part 2 that I was talking about in the last video. If you haven't watched that, go watch it. Where we're going to talk about more violations that happen throughout JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, because as I was researching for this video, I had realized there are definitely a good deal of them that have just been animated. I'm not even talking about the ones that have been in part 7, 8, or 9. And what better way to start off this video than talking about Josuke and Rohan versus Highway Star, which really turned out to be a Josuke beatdown on Highway Star. Imagine this: you and your mortal enemy are on a bus, and driving on that bus y'all go down a tunnel, and while on that tunnel your mortal enemy says that they saw a room where a man picked up an unconscious woman's arm. Now you think they're messing with you, so you don't think anything of it, and they go down the tunnel to check it out. Now, by the time they check it out, you're outside the tunnel, and you start to slowly go in, but when you go in, you see them getting harmed, because as you walked into that supposed room your mortal enemy was talking about, they are almost completely dead, with their nutrients almost completely gone, and you see a stand. Not only do you see a stand, your mortal enemy, the nigga that hates you, tells you to run. So you hightail it out of there and you tell him you'll come back for him once you figure out how to beat this stand. But that stand is not letting you go, chasing you down wherever you go throughout the city. It was on Josuke's tail, and Josuke was evading the best he could, but the thing was, it kept getting faster. His stand, it was keeping up with a motorcycle that Josuke was on, so he called Koichi in order to have him help him find out who the stand user could be. This is where Koichi clutches up and finds that the stand user was in the hospital. Now this is where shit gets crucial, because at this point Josuke, he's angry, and he pulls up to the hospital, and the person in the hospital there, he's like, I smell blood, whose blood is it? And Josuke, he says mine, and he looks at him, and the stand user, he's like, you're not gonna hurt someone injured in a hospital bed, right? And Josuke says no, heals him, then he hurts him so bad that he sends him flying outside of the hospital room. He punches him through a window, knocking him into a fountain, re-injuring most of the things he had already injured. Now this next one, I think is one of my personal favorites, because it captures how much Jolene was beating niggas up in part 6. Because this is the very first arc, the very first time we actually see Jolene for real within Stone Ocean. And the first time we see her, she's going up against Guess. And can I just say this? Guess had it coming. She was tweaking. Jolene got there, and she had the top bunk as a storage space, and she slept on the bottom bunk, and then she shrunk Jolene without Jolene even knowing it was her, or without Jolene even knowing what a stand was for real. But she was trying to make her become her pet. She was training her. She was making her run on a wheel, lift books as a little mouse. He made her talk in a mouse voice. The shit was wild. I was watching is this the 3rd episode? Are you sure? But this is where Guess fucked up, because she tried to make Jolene go out and steal some shit from a guard. And while she was doing that, Jolene started to grow bigger, and that's when Jolene told her to bring her back, and she did bring her back. Kind of. Jolene was at the gate, and Guess made the pendulum drop. Now, if you don't remember, the pendant is the one that gave Jolene the stand, but it dropped and Jolene leaned in to pick it up, and Guess hit her again, making her shrink. And the guard spots Jolene, so Guess, she thought for a second that the guard was just finna shoot Jolene and ring the alarm, which the guard ring the alarm, but he didn't shoot Jolene. It gave Jolene time to beat the fuck out of her. And that's what she did. With the last seconds before the guard even pulled up, she used the last 10 to 15, maybe 20, just beating the actual tar piss out of Guess. And it was deserved, and not only that, it was the first beatdown of the part, so the animation was completely crisp. And not only even being the first beatdown of the part, it's the first time we officially get the name of Jolene's stand. So it hit different watching her beat the shit out of Guess after she was fucking with her for an episode and a half. Now for this last one, it comes from part 6 too, and it's actually the most important part of part 6, and that's when Emporio beat the tar piss out of Poochie. Not only beating the tar piss, but resetting the universe, stopping Poochie's current plan that was in progress, and bringing a version of his friends back, even if it didn't bring his friends back with their memories. But starting off, we get Emporio transported to the new universe after Poochie ran through all of his friends, was looking for him, didn't get him, and he rode in on a dolphin, letting him sneak in. Because remember, with Made in Heaven, the animals remain unchanged and all that. But since when creating the new universe, Poochie did not have Emporio in mind. He's like, yep, I gotta get this little nigga out of here. So he spent the entire time when he first got to the new universe chasing down Emporio throughout the Stone Ocean prison. And when I say chasing down, he was hunting him down till eventually they got to the ghost room. Emporio thought he would be safe there. Or did he? Because Poochie came out the cut out of nowhere. Now I'm thinking this is the end of the road for my nigga, but he had a plan. He had a plot, really. He had the disc of Poochie's brother weather report, and he popped that bitch in so fast, I was shocked. Because next thing you know, boom! Weather report cracks Poochie upside the head. Now, I'm pretty sure at this point, Poochie, he couldn't use Made in Heaven because it was still in progress. The universe wasn't completed. But none of that matters. Now, of course, Poochie started begging with Emporio, telling him this is bigger than him. He's about to give the universe a gift, eternal happiness. You can't stop eternal happiness. But Emporio was not hearing that shit. And he started clobbering Poochie. He beat him to death, literally. Every punch turned this nigga frosty or extremely hot. Every punch was a new climate. I know Poochie's body couldn't take it, and he didn't hold up for long. Because after Poochie died, we get a reset back to what the original universe was. But since Poochie is dead, he never happens in this universe. So the people in part 6, them being dead, they come back, their souls come back, but their identities, who they were before, that's all different. And out of the part 6 cast, Emporio is the only one to remember actually what happened with them in the journey that they actually just took. And honestly, being a 9-10-year-old learning all that, that would fuck me up for life. I would have to be put in a mental institution. But to each their own. Maybe he can find a way to explain it to the new part 6 members, or maybe not. But that's all I got for y'all today. If y'all like the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, y'all, welcome back. And today I feel like we need to talk about the different power systems within JoJo. When I say we need to talk about it, really it's I need to talk about it. Because I've been thinking of different ways on how I could do this video, but like it's always been nagging at me because I've never figured out the right way until now. Breaking down the 3 different power systems that we see throughout JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, starting off with the Ripple / Harmon, going on to Stands, and ending off with Spin. And to start off, let's talk about Harmon. Now, Harmon, it was the original power system we saw in the first 2 parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. And the way you get it through self-controlled respiration. When you train, you can produce ripples throughout your body that replicate the energy of the sun, making you the natural opposite of zombies, vampires, and pillarmen. I feel like Harmon had a big impact on me personally because it was very interesting to see how Araki wrote around the use of Harmon, basically. And when I say that, part 1 was definitely the filling out part. I can even see in the way he would name attacks or have the characters do attacks. Part 2 is really where we get to see close to the full extent of Harmon and how dangerous it really could be. Because you had people like Caesar who were able to turn their sun energy into bubbles, which they could rapidly push out at all times. But the ripple doesn't just affect humans, it can affect the earth as well, like the dirt and the grass. It also goes through liquids really easily. Like we see in part 2, I'm pretty sure it went through an oil rig that Jonathan Joestar had put it through. Now, one of the things that we also know is that only 1 out of 10,000 people in practice could actually use hormone. But in order to actually effectively use it in real life, only few did, because it takes a lot of intensive training and hardship and willpower to just activate the power. So basically the power was perfectly made conveniently for Jonathan Joestar. So of course he had it. That also makes me think, like, will my nigga Batman have it? Or Spider-Man? Because you gotta think, both of them, they suffered great tragedies and they both have incredible willpowers. And I should make that a video. As a matter of fact, now that I'm talking about it, later this week or next week, y'all might see superheroes who would have hormone. But that's not all it could do. It can also heal various parts of your body, and it combats, like I said earlier, vampires, zombies, and pillarmen. Overall, I feel like it would be a very useful power to have in real life, and I still feel like it's very useful in the series to the point that it's needed. Up next, we got everyone's favorite evil, weird, bizarre spirits. We have stands. Now, I love talking about stands, but I'll give y'all a little breakdown because this video is titled going through all the different power systems. I could make a whole video on stands. I'm pretty sure I have. But we all know what stands are: visual representations of life energy. The thing with stands is that once you get one, it's so personalized to you that no one else could have your stand. No other soul would make sense having your stand because your stand is personally tailored to you. That is, if you get one, because it is a lot of cases we see where people get sick trying to have stands. One being in the first part we see stands, part 3, where we see Holly, Jotaro's mother, get sick trying to carry her stand, or when her stand manifests. And that's simply because a lot of people in the JoJo world just are not built to inherit stands. They don't have a strong enough willpower. Their representation of their mind and psyche is so messed up that them having a stand, their body just wouldn't allow it. Now, stands are very usually attached to their stand user, but there are some times, such as having an automatic stand or having a stand that's specifically put on an object where you don't always see the stand. One stand that's really small and underrated is Metallica. It doesn't have like a whole humanoid body, but it's split up into little pieces of metal, and it's so dangerous. If you haven't watched part 5, please watch part 5. But there are also times when you can die, and that's when your stand really gets activated. We see that with Notorious Big, where after the user dies, Notorious Big gets on the plane that everyone in the group was on and starts going fucking crazy. Another thing is, since stands are really mostly you, they really just do whatever you say. So whatever command you give a stand, they'll usually do it. It's only very few times, and it's usually with humanoid stands, where they will stop you from doing certain things, such as when we see Star Platinum stop Jotaro from pulling a bullet in his cranium. Another rule about stands is that you can only have one at a time. Having more than one isn't allowed. Now, you see people like Diablo, for example, who has a stand and a sub stand, but that's what it is, just a sub stand. Now, your stand can take different forms or turn into different entities, but it can only be one at a time. One stand at a time. That is important. That is the one rule that really grounds stands all together. One stand at a time. But don't get me wrong, even though most of this sounds great, stands are not created equal. You could think you have a great fighting spirit, you're really strong, you're a really strong-willed person, but if your stand comes out and it's like a toaster and it has low functions, well, you know who you are. But at the end of the day, your stand, it really all just depends on your personality. Now for the final and actually most rare of the three, spin, which we don't see get introduced until we get to the new universe, the SBR verse as a lot of people call it, which takes place of part 7, part 8, and part 9. The spin is a phenomenon wielded by key but like few characters in SBR and in JoJo Leon. I don't believe we've seen any in part 9 in JoJo Land, so I don't know. But it is a near perfect form of rotation that can produce a unique form of energy that can be used for a lot of different reasons. You could say that the ripple and spin are super similar as they show up and look somewhat similar, but they have two different concepts that back them. It's described as a state of rotation closest to perfection, and that perfection is actually the golden spiral. The golden spiral, coming from math, is a perfect endless rotation, a perfect endless spin or spiral said to be omnipresent within the world, producing more and more rotation as it continues to spin. Now, in the JJBA universe, the spin is a specialty of the kingdom of Nepals, where Gyro Zeppeli is from, and where we actually find out Gyro Zeppeli learned the spin. Everyone in JoJo who knows the spin has either been a descendant of the kingdom or was taught by someone who is from the kingdom. Now, the spin is very easy to learn at the start, but it's incredibly hard to master. It takes years of perfect practice, and it's very rare that you master it in under a year at least, unless you're Johnny Joestar. But for a spin user to transfer the spin onto objects or anything of the sort, they have to be able to perfectly aim and master the spin in order for it to actually work. That's why throughout part 7, you see a lot of the time Johnny was not hitting nothing, because he just found out spin existed from Gyro. Without Gyro, he would have never known that ever existed. The spin can be used on things like corks, bullets, water, basically anything that has an access or anything like that. But my beautiful goat Gyro sometimes uses it with one object, which will actually become his weapon, the incredible steel balls. Pause. And Gyro, he used it with something so unconventional that when I first read it, it surprised the shit out of me, because I was thinking like, doesn't that hurt? But obviously it doesn't. He uses his fingernails. But the spin, all in all, was definitely one of those concepts that caught my eye once I got to part 7, because I was like, wow, Araki, what is going through your mind? Because what made you even think of this? He deadass just be putting a spin onto real life concepts. But that's all I got for y'all today. If y'all like the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, we're on the road to 2,000, so make sure you like it up. Peace. If you watched to the end of this video, thank you. On this journey, this YouTube journey I've been on, just about, well, tomorrow makes 40 days, but posting consistently every day, it's taught me a lot of things. It's taught me two things in specific. It's taught me discipline, and it's definitely taught me patience. And, you know, I'm just being patient on everything that has came to me, and I'm grateful for everything that has came to me. But, you know, if you enjoyed this whole video, like, comment, subscribe. Of course, there's more videos on the way, and there's a video coming out tomorrow. Peace.